All right, so I want to talk about how I would go about acquiring new clients, how I would generate leads, how I'd build my business if I started all over again as a brand new real estate agent. All right, so I want to make this video because I think the thought of client acquisition and how to get clients and how to get new leads as a new real estate agent sometimes is overwhelming. And so I want to simplify this entire thing for you. All right, so let me show you kind of what this could look like. The first thing that I would do is I would put together a database, and I would have this organized. And I'll tell you that I didn't do this in the beginning, and I regretted it later in my career. And so in this database, when we get through the 4 core pillars of client acquisition, and I walk you through the model, all of those pillars will feed into the database. And so before you start to go out there and deploy any type of lead generation system or strategy, we have to have this database system in place. So inside of the database system, the first thing that I would have is I would have a weekly email newsletter set up. That every single week I would be, and I'm not talking about the cookie cutter templated emails that you get from your brokerage or your CRM. And we're not talking about cookie recipes or cupcake recipes. We're not talking about any of that stuff that simply is not valuable, that I think a lot of agents out there want to just automate. I just want to hit this button and send all this crap. Well, if you're going to do that, it's the fastest way to have people inside the database unsubscribe. And so it's the strategy, okay? We're talking about putting together a highly valuable piece of written content that you write yourself that goes into the database every single month because you say you care, because you say it's a relationship business. This is the best way to communicate what we call one-to-many, where you could create one piece of content, get it out to the entire database through email. And it has to be a huge top number 1 priority with inside the database system. All right. We'll make another video about that. Number 2 is all of the leads inside of the database. Not every contact, but every lead inside of the database should also get a monthly direct mail piece. Now, here's an interesting concept. Is a lot of agents that think about lead generation, they come across like geographic farming. And I think about that. I think about geographic farming, I think completely differently than a lot of people selling that product or service. But the point is, I think that a lot of agents are quick to try it. They're quick to invest in sending direct mail to people that they have no relationship with, and then sit back, wait, and pray that the phone rings. But then when I bring up a concept, well, does it make more sense to invest into the database of leads that you have already generated, where there's already a relationship that is established? Does it make more sense to invest inside of that database versus outside of the database? And they say, interesting. So what you're saying, Brandon, is to farm the database, to market to the database, to invest dollars in the database before we invest dollars out of the database. Well, yes, that is exactly what I am suggesting. So we're going to generate opportunities. We're going to generate leads. People are going to funnel into the database. We're going to get into the pillars in just a second. And we're going to send all of those people a weekly email that is super high value. Maybe it includes some video content. And then we're going to send them all a direct mail piece every single month as well. So that's number 2. Number 3, we want to make sure that we add all those people on our social platforms. There's a lot of strategies that we can deploy. We'll get into some of them here, not all of them, that we can use social media as a conversion mechanism. We're not talking about paid advertising. We're not talking about paid marketing in this video. We're talking about conversion, right? So we're funneling everybody from our 4 core lead generation pillars, which we'll get into in a second, into the database, and then we're letting the database do the conversion. All right, so we're going to add them all on social media platforms. All right, number 4. Then we're going to, once these leads are in here, we're going to invite them all to our quarterly event. And so again, I'll make another video on quarterly events. But as you're out there generating opportunities, having good conversations, and generating opportunities, we're going to put them into the database. Part of that system is having some type of client-facing event every 90 days. All right, and I'll make another video on what that could look like. All right, number 5. Part of why we want to add people on social is so that we can get them into our Facebook group. So for whatever reason, I don't see enough real estate agents doing communication with their database inside of their own Facebook group. So if you don't have one yet, I would start one immediately where you control the narrative, you control the communication. It allows you, again, this is another one-to-many strategy. Once you start to build up your Facebook group, again, I'll make another video about how to sell through Facebook groups, but you want your own Facebook group that you are the mayor of. And this is a great channel to communicate one-to-many. Imagine a world you've got your entire database inside of a Facebook group and all the things you can do inside of that Facebook group. I'll make another video about that. And then lastly, number 6 is we have all the leads on your birthday program. And a lot of this stuff I'm mentioning is just, there are links to this stuff in the description, but like the birthday program as an example. So we use a company called Mailbox Power. And so every lead that we generate, we would put them into this system where automatically we just do it one time, and this person is getting a birthday card and either cookies or a brownie that are phenomenal on their birthday every year forever until we take them off. And it's automatic. So that is our birthday system. All right, now that we've got the foundation in place, let's get into what I call the 4 core. These are the 4 core client acquisition systems that I believe you should have in your business to generate a consistent, long-term, sustainable real estate sales practice, which is exactly what I think you want. So let's talk about pillar number 1. So pillar number 1 has to be your sphere of influence and past clients. Now, yet again, another one of my biggest regrets in my career. Even if you're a brand new real estate agent, I understand maybe some of the hesitations around this group of people that you do know. You might have some imposter syndrome. You might say to yourself, well, why would they do business with me? I'm a brand new real estate agent. I understand all of that. I totally get it. But we want to have a system in place to communicate with those people so that over time, you build and position yourself as an expert authority, because eventually you'll start to do a lot of business with these people. In fact, when you got into the business, it's probably the group of people you thought you would get most of your business from. So let's not neglect pillar number 1. Again, I've got a lot of other videos on the channel about how to work that group of people, but we want to have that as our first and highest priority. You don't want to do what I did, which is like wait 5, 6, 7, 8 years till you're in the business, chasing people you don't know, and then say, man, oh man, I'm leaving a lot of opportunity on the table to serve the people that I do know. And so let's have that pillar in place, all right? So that's pillar number 1. These are all 4 that I would have. The reason why we have 4, right? Like any solid foundation, if you look at a chair, it's got 4 legs to the chair, right? So not just one of these, and I'll talk more about that in just a second, but we have all 4. Number 2 is I would have, we call this direct outbound. Okay, so let's talk about this for a few minutes. So direct, meaning that the communication is directly to the client avatar in which you want to serve. So this is directly to homeowners, okay? And first off, this is an unpaid approach, meaning you're not using money, you're using your time to invest in this channel of business. This allows you to build cash flow. This pillar of business has the highest profit margin. All right. So what are we talking about specifically here? I'm talking about creating a world where you're going out there and communicating either via the phone or at the door, or you're sending direct messages through Instagram or Facebook, or you're texting. It's direct to people like for sale by owners, as an example, or expired listings, as an example, or absentee owners, as an example, or downsizers, right? These are just some examples. Or probates, or you could circle prospect. All of which, none of which are right or wrong. The only key thing I want to make a point of in pillar number 2 is that when you're inside of pillar number 2, when you pick the sources, I think a lot of agents are so quick to run to for sale by owners and expireds because they think of that as maybe quick cash, which it is. But don't get stuck in FSBO expired land. You want to have some of the other sources that would allow you to build a pipeline long term, and probably need a whole nother segment on just that alone. But you want to make sure that we have equal contact distribution. Okay. So if you're going to, as an example, inside of pillar number 2, I'll just say, hey, if we're going to do 30 contacts a day, as an example, you're going to reach out to and have conversations with 30 people with inside of these sources. I would have equal distribution of those conversations. Maybe you have 5 with for sale by owners. Maybe you have 5 with expired listings. Maybe you have 5 with downsizers. Maybe you have 5 with downsizers, 5 with probates, and 5 with circle prospecting. This allows your business to be what we would call market proof. This allows you to build both short-term cash flow, long-term pipeline with high profitability, low competition. I would really highly have you consider having more of an equal distribution instead of saying, well, I need money this second. I'm just going to focus everything on expired listings. And it's difficult, right? So again, we'll make some more content about that. But pillar number 2 is we have to have a direct outbound pillar in our business that allows us to build cash flow. Because the reality is, just real quick, yes, priority number 1 is our people that we do know, but that business might not be as abundant as some other sources in the beginning of your career. Later in your career, it might really be one of your top pillars, but we want to make sure that's prioritized. So what does that mean? That means that we really have to have another pillar of business that we can count on in the early days that allow us to build some cash flow, allows us to go out there and be in control of our destiny and get business right now, okay? Because when I coach a real estate agent who is maybe newer to the business, we really focus on all 4 core pillars, but the first priority is direct outbound. Because direct outbound should be where you make your first 100K per year. All right. So that's pillar number 2. Now let's talk about pillar number 3. Pillar number 3 is what we would call direct, means we go right to the consumer, direct inbound. Now, what does that mean? That means that we are communicating. This is a one-to-many, means we communicate with the masses, and it's people that initiate conversation with us. You would prefer, I would imagine, I'm just guessing, we all would, you would prefer that prospects be the one who call you without you having to be the one to call them in most every case. However, that's just not the reality of it in the beginning of your career. So you have to be the one who initiates conversation. You have to be the one playing offense. But in the beginning, if I went back and did it all over again, I would not have waited as long as I had to have a direct inbound, right? Again, the priority is to master your direct outbound until you're generating 6 figures. And then these other pillars will pick up over time. So direct inbound, what do I mean by this? So perhaps it could be a YouTube channel where you're creating YouTube content and you're putting that message in front of your ideal client avatar. Again, don't have time on this video to walk you through how to build a YouTube strategy, and then that YouTube content has inbound leads, people watching the content, consuming the content, and then them reaching out to you would be an example of an indirect inbound. Direct, going right to the consumer. We're not paying for it either. This is all free. Maybe you have an Instagram strategy. So on our coaching call last week with some of the agents that I coach, I taught them an advanced strategy on how to go out there and generate leads and clients through Instagram. Okay, fine. What about a blog? So blogs are one of my favorite ways to generate new business and new clients and generate real estate leads, especially for those people that say to themselves, well, I'm more of an introvert. I don't feel comfortable making video content. I don't want to do that. Is there another way to generate an inbound lead system in my business where I don't have to do that? Well, yeah, you might really enjoy writing content. I love to write. I like to express my creativity sometimes more through writing than I do making videos like this. And so if that's you, a blog could be a phenomenal strategy for you to have as an inbound lead generation pillar in your business. Okay, what about, now I'm going to write this in, open houses. You say open houses, geez, that's really? You're talking about open houses in 2024? Yes. We have agents that primarily focus on open houses as their inbound strategy, and they earn multiple 6 figures doing open houses. Not one open house a month, but doing 3, 4, 5 open houses per week, 20 per month, with a specific strategy that allows them to convert those visitors into actual leads. So that's another inbound strategy. Well, what about same thing with a podcast? We can create not video content, right? Not written content, but content through audio, where we have a podcast, we grow that audience with inside of the local market, and that's our mechanism to generate opportunities. Again, we'll do some more content around that in the future. And then seminars, which are in person, and webinars, which are online. We can do educational type events through our client avatar to generate inbound opportunities, right? We're communicating to the masses here. So we can have a webinar that we generate for first-time home buyers. We can have a webinar that we generate for downsizers. We can have a webinar that we create for first-time home sellers. These are just some examples of webinars that you can shoot, or seminars, live in-person events, or easier probably to do a webinar, record the video, right? And get that through your social networks and start to generate inbound opportunities through that avenue. Okay, so we talked about pillar number 1, pillar number 2, pillar number 3. Let's talk about pillar number 4. So lastly, again, I think that you should start to have this strategy in your business, which is referral partners. And you should start working this. This doesn't mean that pillar number 4 starts generating you clients right away, but it should be part of your core 4 pillars of client acquisition that you start to work in the early days of your career. So what do we mean by referral partners? Well, I mean attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, insurance agents. Well, why, Brandon? Well, because I want you to think about something. This is all what we would call B2B. All the other 3 are all B2C, business to consumer. This is a B2B business model. You see, most of the time, real estate agents are the primary lead source for adjacent industries like the mortgage business. You see, most mortgage companies rely on real estate agents as their number one lead generation strategy. That's where they get most of their business from. That's why you have mortgage people reaching out to you, it seems like every single day, wanting to take you to lunch, right? Because that's how they grow their business. They grow it through other business owners like yourself. So you could do the same thing. This title companies do the same thing. Home warranty companies do the same thing. Home inspectors do the same thing. They don't go after the consumer direct. They go after you as the business owner who's dealing with the consumer, and you refer the consumer to them. Well, you could do the exact same thing. You could start to establish relationships with probate attorneys, as an example. These probate attorneys are dealing with the consumer direct who's going through the probate process, and in most cases, to settle the estate, there is real estate that needs to be sold. And most of the people that go through probate, as just an example, have a home that needs to be sold in the area in which they do not live. So they don't know a real estate agent. So therefore, the probate attorney can make a recommendation to you, right? That's just an example. Same thing with CPAs. These are all industries that deal with the consumer directly, that are have a need to buy or sell a house. So if we have strategic business relationships with pillar number 4, we call those referral partners. You're doing events with them. They're coming to your client appreciation events. You have them as a part of your marketing strategy, your communication strategy. They're investing inside of your business. Maybe you're investing inside of their business. This becomes your own network. You guys are meeting once a month, and you guys are doing a breakfast once a month, talking about systems and strategies that are working for one another, helping each other to grow each other's business. You see, all of these lead into the database, right? All of these channels lead into the database. And so I think what I was going to say earlier on is most agents they're like a one-trick pony, right? And there is a time and place to really go deep and master one thing, for sure. You want to master one of these at a time. However, I think that you should have some, you should diversify just a bit so that the business can be sustainable long-term no matter what the market does. And so, as an example, I'll have an agent who reaches out for coaching, and they've been in the business for 17 years. And I say, okay, tell me about your client acquisition. What are you doing to acquire new clients? And they say 90% of my business comes through expired listings. And that's a very vulnerable business, because what happens when expired listings dry up, right? Or I'll have another agent say, I'm 90% Zillow leads. Well, that's super vulnerable, right? Well, what are we doing with our past clients and centers of influence? How are you generating repeat and referral business? Oof, Brandon, I don't do a lot there, right? So what are you doing on the inbound side? Is it just all sweat equity? You just get in what you put out. It's all time. So what happens when you get sick? What happens when you don't work? You don't generate any business. So there's no inbound. There's no long-term sustainable inbound strategy that you build over time that generates inbound leads while you're spending your time generating outbound leads. You see how all 4 of these are critically important. And so for a newer real estate agent, inside of your first 1 to 3 years, the goal would be to implement all 4 of these. And so as you're growing the business, certainly if you need support from that standpoint, maybe we have a conversation about potentially working together. And if that is you, and when the time is right, I'll just throw a link in the description. You can schedule a day and time that works best for you, and we can have that conversation. So otherwise, hopefully today made sense. It gives you some clarity on exactly what it is that we need to start working on moving forward. If you have questions, certainly reach out, or you can just throw a comment below.